Go. Okay, so we're recording. This is Joy Shutters Helding, joined by, let's see, we've got Squire on the phone, and
Jared was on earlier.
do we have Dale?
Jared's here.
Jared, and I think Dale's coming a little bit later. This is MVP Office Hours for February 21st, 2020, and hopefully everyone can see the slideshow for the shared screen. I'll be sharing the basic slides, and then Squire's going to be handling some other tech in the background. What we have here is a list of all of the upcoming Dreaming events and upcoming events by Salesforce. You can check out the customer success event calendar. You can see Trailhead events and webinars calendar. And the upcoming Dream events. We've got Snowforce next week and Albanian Dreamin', and then Banff Dreamin' is coming up in Canada also. Skiforce in Austria, and then London's Colin, and then Southeast Dreamin' in Atlanta. And then don't forget about your in-person and virtual community groups. Go to success.salesforce.com, and you can sign up for meeting invites at trailblazercommunitygroups.com. You can follow us and post questions at MVP Office Hours. I think the preferred place to post challenges that you're looking for quicker feedback is in the success community for MVP Office Hours. Jared, is that about right?
Yep.
Okay, and so the next slide we're going to take a peek at is just to remind everyone of some of our basic parameters, right? The call is on the first and third Friday. So today's the 21st, and the first Friday is March. Someone can help me out here. Is March something? But it's an open QA session. The registration link is the bit.ly MVP OHUS, and we post the recordings on YouTube. There's a whole library of recordings there. Our favorite hashtags are Problem Solve Together, Community Learner, and MVPOH. Everyone gets to participate, share your experience and your input and your recommendations and your references. If you're not currently speaking, please mute so that we can keep distractions and background noise to a minimum. To ask questions, use the chat to raise your hand or unmute yourself. Announce yourself with your name so that we know who we're talking to. And then use chat to post your resources and links, et cetera, so that we can put those into the deck. And then if you need to share your screen, please share your developer org and don't share confidential data from your production org because we don't want to expose anything that we're not supposed to be exposing. All right, and then the next slide is we're looking for the MVPs that are on board. I know we've got Jared, and we've got Squire, and we've got myself. Do we have any other MVPs on the line? Go ahead, unmute yourself and tell us who you are. I know we've got Carlos. Yes. Carlos, do you want to say hello?
Of Portuguese Office Hours, right?
Yes, this is Carlos from Tampa, Florida.
All right, Carlos, thank you. Do we have any others on the line? Squire, do you see the list?
I do, not immediately, but that doesn't mean I'm not missing one.
Okay.
But,
all right, well.
I do want to make sure we don't forget. So Carlos is one of the co-hosts or the host of the MVP Office Hours Portuguese. And just a reminder that people in that regional area or just wants to be on another MVP Office Hours and wants to share with Carlos, his is on the last Thursday of the month. Register in the same URL, Carlos, I forget.
Yes, everything that you go to, if you go to the MVP Office Hours, the standard one, you see a link in there. Yes, and it happens every the last Thursday of the month next week. is the one happening. And you don't need to speak Portuguese or Spanish. Everybody's welcome.
Excellent. Excellent. And then is the EMEA still running on the last Thursday also, do we know?
Not that I know. It has been close to a year that I haven't seen anything with them.
Okay, so we'll have to, if anyone's interested, you'll have to check their Twitter and poke around on there. So do we have, let's see, do we have anyone with their hand up?
Yeah, so Marty's had her hand up for quite a while. She's been real patient. So why don't we jump right to Marty?
All right.
Thank you. This is
All right.
Marty.
Hello, Marty.
So my issue, one of my issues, I'll start with this one today, is trying to put an image into an email signature. And I uploaded a file and I created a public link and I added that image source syntax per the Salesforce documentation, but all we are seeing in the actual image is that little image square, not the actual image. Has anyone had this? And it used to work in a different instance, but I recreated it in my demo. Anybody have this issue?
So to say it back, is it part of a template or is it just part of a?
No, just added it to my personal settings. Everybody wants to add it in their personal settings email signature. So when I go, we're using Lightning. When I go in Lightning and just click into the email box, and then what you see in the email box is what you get when you send the email, and all I'm seeing is that little image square.
That one that says there's supposed to be an image here, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a Salesforce issue. I had posted this in Salesforce, and there was an issue in Marketing Cloud the other day, but I didn't see it in Sales Cloud.
Is it concurrent with the spring release, or did you?
We're just adding it. So good question. Quite possible, but I was just adding it. I'm a consultant, and I was just adding it for my customer this week. So I don't know if it's related. And I am about to put in a Salesforce support case, but I was double checking, and I can recreate the issue in my demo instance. So don't know.
And one follow-on question. I know there were a couple of critical updates that had to do with things like Google cookies and IE11 changes and stuff. Any chance that just browser changes fixes the problem?
Interesting. I'm gonna. That's a good suggestion. I'm gonna try it in a different browser. Good question. I'm using Chrome, the most current release.
Would work in. So.
But yeah, I'll try it in Firefox. Good idea.
Okay. Anybody else have input on there? I don't have a lot of familiarity with customizing our signatures, so I'm hoping someone else does.
The only thing I can think of is your possible security settings, with the, displaying content. But I'm also not super familiar with images in the signature.
Yeah, I'm recreating this in multiple instances, so that's kind of what is like ding, ding, ding. All right, thank you, everybody.
Oh, sorry, a couple more questions. Just
sure.
So we can help. Lightning or Classic?
Lightning.
Okay, because it is a different process. Lightning.
Yep.
Okay.
Definitely Lightning.
Any chance? Oh, sorry, I was going to ask a question that has no answer. Never mind.
Great question.
Yeah, I really, again, just I hate to ask you the obvious question.
No, please.
Sorry, I'm going to paste something. I pasted the URL to the documentation on how to do that. This is the one that you followed letter for letter, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, the one, and then it has the image source HTML tag stuff at the bottom. Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right. Interesting. All right. Let's.
Okay, we'll move on, and I'm going to try it in Firefox.
Okay, and then in the meantime, while we're talking, I'll do a little searching too. But if anybody else thinks of something or finds something while we're talking, feel free to throw your hand up and let us know.
Sure. Anyone else have any other issues?
I see no hands yet.
Cindy.
Yes, Cindy, yeah.
Oh, Cindy just popped up. Yep. Cindy, tell us what you got.
Okay, so I was on the call 2 weeks ago, and I was working on a flow, and you gave me ideas on how to fix it, and I've got it working. But my question is, how do you, or do you have to deal with null values? Like, so I've got a screen collecting information, and then I'm going to create a new record of a different object. And I'm gathering, I'm using the traverse, the different levels to pull in information now that that's available with Spring. But what happens if the value where it's trying to traverse is null? How do I
So
try
specifically,
and,
the ID that would be in a relationship field is what you're saying, right? It's not connected to a parent.
right.
So can you give a little bit more specific use case, just so we understand why you'd be having that problem?
Yeah.
Can I share? I'm going to share my screen. I think that would probably be a little easier to try to visually show. Okay, let me know when you can see it.
Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay, so basically, I get the record that I'm on, and I make a decision, and get screen input, update the current record where it's on, and then based on that, display conditional information, and then a decision. This is how I create each of the records, because pretty much the decision here, this is the screen flow. So they have this checklist. They mark which documents they have, and when they go on to the next screen, then it displays, okay, if you've checked it on the previous screen, I'm not going to show you the same checkboxes here. It's only going to be the ones that are unchecked. And then based on this, I let them put in notes for each of those two. And then it creates the related record. But I've come into instances where when it has to fill in, when it has to fill in the this trust, that could be blank, and I'm getting a, what's the error message? Like I didn't have, it was cross-reference object I didn't have access to, which I do. So I wasn't sure how to account for if it's null.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
So really quick, so we don't lose track. We're super excited that you got it to work. We love that you succeeded in the conversation. So, but anyway, done patting our backs. Just to add a little clarity too. So there are times where these records do have some sort of parent or grandparent relationship, but not always. And in the times that they don't, you need to know how to handle that situation, or should it not be able to complete the process? What's the outcome?
It should be able to. So where it's going from this relationship is up to this SCI plan level detail, which will always have a value.
Gotcha.
But from that record, then I'm going up to the account, and the account may have blank fields for some of the values I'm trying to pull in.
Sure. All right. So, sorry. So I think I misunderstood earlier part of the question. So it's not about not being able to get to the related account, but there are fields on the account that might be blank that you need to bring back down.
Correct.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So I guess I'm usually the error that you described, at least in my experience, means that you're not able to get to where you thought you were going, not that a value is null in a field that you're pulling back.
Okay.
I want to revalidate, like, unless that error that you're getting usually represents you can't get to where you thought you were going.
Yeah, and I should be able to. So I wonder if there's some type of something on the record that I'm just not finding of why I wouldn't have access to that field, because I'm set as system admin, and I have.
You're testing as you and not as a user. I mean, that's not the challenge, right?
Pardon?
You're testing as yourself as the system admin, not as a user who might trigger the event?
Correct. I'm just trying to get it to work for me first.
And this is only when that field is blank, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it works great if that field is filled in.
Gotcha. So one thing you could try is, I have seen an issue before with some field types in Flow where because of like the process of operation, I'm guessing you're pulling the value from somewhere else, and because there's no value there, or even if they're filling it out from somewhere, basically because the flow, that variable doesn't actually ever get filled. So you're trying to pull that value, but Flow doesn't actually, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen in some other field types like this, where Flow tries to pull the variable, but because the field is blank or there's no value, it doesn't pull it as a null value. It just pulls it as if literally nothing's there, right? So when it goes to update the record, it errors out because and nothing really happens there because it doesn't actually have any sort of value of like you're actually setting it to null. You're just, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of a weird deal. I've seen it with like some checkbox fields as well, where I've had to assign a value of null to the variable if it's blank, essentially. So you
look at the variable setup, because that might answer the question you're talking about.
Yeah, look at that. Let's look at that variable.
So I don't have a variable for it. I am just going up from the object I'm on up to the plan, up to the account, and then grabbing the field from the account.
Sure, but you're assigning it to, on the left-hand side, is that just another field, another object, or is that a variable?
Is it just a record a record variable?
That's just a record variable or it's a field on the Reg 9. And it may be just a weird thing because this is a partial sandbox, and the value that I was trying to pull in, I had not grabbed that object when I did the refresh of the sandbox. So it could be that there's just something out of sync, because then I did a data import of the values, and it could be that there's just something wonky with that. But so you're saying if this is null on the account, it shouldn't have any problems putting a null in here?
Is that field an ID field?
Yes.
That's the problem. You can't put null into an ID field. So you're going up to the account and saying, get this record and trying to assign it, because you can't put null in an ID. It's either there or it's not.
Okay.
ID is a special field. So you'd have to probably what, Jared, do you think? Initialize a null to it, like actually pass null versus nothing?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you're gonna have to like actually deliberately or like explicitly assign it a value um, through an assignment element is what I've done before. Because yeah, you're going to pull it, and as Squire said, it goes and pulls it directly from that record. But if nothing's there, you're trying to basically put nothing in there. But you can't just like put nothing in there. You have to actually explicitly say like make this null.
Okay.
I
So
think that would be
where,
that's my initial thought. It'd have to obviously try
Okay.
it, but
where would the assignment go?
just any. I mean, really. Well, the trick is you'll have to do it. You essentially got to put like a decision element in between probably the screen and the create record.
Okay.
Because what you want to do, right, is you need to do a decision element to check to see is there a value in that field. If there's if there's not a value in that field, then assign it a value of null and then create the record. If there's a value in the field, then just go ahead and create the record. So
Okay.
now the thing is when you do that, you will have to change in your create record the variable you're using for that. Like I would just create its own field variable for that, just so that you can assign the value to it directly.
Yeah. I
Okay.
like that. Rather than trying to force it into the object variable, have an intermediary storage variable that you can audit and then make a decision off of that. Is that what you're getting at, Jared?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. That gives me something to go on. Thanks.
Keep us updated.
All right. I
Yeah,
will.
seriously. All right, it looks like we've got Scott with his hand up.
And Joy, if you want to reshare, we're back to white.
Yep.
Hey guys.
Scott, do you want to go ahead and tell us what's going on?
Sure.
You need to share your screen.
No, I don't. This is more of a just a
All right,
question
hold
to
on
the
a second.
community. You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. So what I'm looking to accomplish is I'm looking to I'm wondering what there is for map components in Salesforce. I've seen that there's like a few expensive things out there. What I'm looking to accomplish is based on geocode, have the number of clients within an area. So in the ideal application, I would put in an address, and that address would get a geocode into a variable. And then I have the sockle to take the geocode and to look at all the other contacts and bring them within a certain distance. And then to display that to a grid, and then also to plot it on a map. As I'm a little surprised, I'm not seeing much in the way of map components out there. And I'm also, the first part about putting in an arbitrary address and returning a geocode, I'm not sure how that one is possible also. I have the code for existing contacts, right? Like if the contact is in the system, I can get a geocode, a geolocation, sorry. Yeah, this geolocation, not geocode. A geolocation from any contact. So I'm wondering if anybody has worked with geolocations and doing things with like client proximity to each other, that type of thing.
So I got to ask another question. Salesforce Maps is now the native tool. You looked at it
Yes.
now. Bought it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I'm not managing like a fleet of salespeople who need the most efficient route from one client to the other client. And if I was, then that functionality would be great and it would be worth paying the $50 per user. But I have like maybe 70 users who want like very cursory access to this thing. Like, you know, this is like I'm doing a client dinner. I'm going to be in an area and I have clients. We're like a wealth management firm. And I'm going to be in this area and I want to know what clients are in around, right? And that's really basically what it is. Just get a list of people to go send an email to say, hey, do you want to come? I'm in town. Do you want to talk to me? So it doesn't really justify spending the price.
Cut you off, but the route tracking is cool, but not the only value add. Like everything else you described is also part of it. I do understand that the price tag is a lot when you think about if it feels like you're paying for the route tracking, but everything else you just described is out of the box as well. Location driven, you can run from list views, you can do all those things. It's cool, but I mean, I hear you. I think you're going to be wiring this thing from scratch because of the implementation of maps. There used to be quite a wide selection of Google Map API connectors that you could import and do everything you're talking about doing if you wanted to write your own. That was the first thing we started with before Maps came online. We wrote our own through the Google Maps API to do some of that.
Yeah.
We found that it was hard to keep up with the requirements when we wrote that hard coded because they were looking for something new. They always want to make a twist. So
Yeah.
anybody else? We're open to conversations, of course.
I will say there is under setup. I'm not sure if you've seen it, right? There's under setup, right, where you do the data integration rules that where you can set up. And this is out of the box Salesforce, to my knowledge, the geocodes, the automatic geocodes for account billing, shipping, contact mailing, and lead addresses.
Yes.
Okay. So
that's what allows me to. So there's kind of like three parts here. There's what I can do right now is I can take a contact in my system because I've turned that on. I can get his geocode and then I can run some SOCL to get all the people near him, which is good. You know, I could present that to a user. Hey, you got to pick one of your clients in town out of this list and present it. But ideally, they'd like to put in like the restaurant that they're going to be hosting it at, and then to get that geocode. The other thing I did see, which I was kind of surprised because you guys are familiar with like Dreamhouse, right?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So Dreamhouse has a map thing that they implement, but it seems a little complicated. And then you know, I'm wondering, you know, how good that implementation is. Because I seem to be using Aurora versus like Lightning Web Components, even though it was supposed to be showing Lightning Web Components. It seems like the map part, which was actually the thing that I would think would most work with Lightning Web Components, because Lightning Web Components is supposed to be like native web versus like, you know, the proprietary thing. But it looks like the Dreamhouse implementation of the map is this like Aurora like component, which I didn't quite understand how they were wiring it.
Dreamhouse app is probably almost 4 years old now, and I think that map implementation was actually tied to a trail that was about implementing an Aura, because at that time there was an Aura map version. So there's probably correlation there in the background about why it hasn't been updated to a Lightning component.
I think this one was a specific.
I mean,
Yeah. I think they do have a new one because I was looking at it. But maybe I'm wrong.
right. It's tied into. Is that one using Google Earth? Maybe, if I remember right, the implementation.
It's actually Dreamhouse - Lightning Web Component. But what I suspect is they probably migrated it from the original Dreamhouse, and that part didn't. Because there's like a Dreamhouse -LWC, there's a Dreamhouse -SFDX, right? And there's a Dreamhouse web app, Dreamhouse mobile app, etc. But I was looking at the Dreamhouse Lightning component, Lightning web thingamabob. But okay, yeah, I mean that's basically, you know, was my question. I was wondering whether there was anything easy out there or whether it's going to be a hard slog.
I mean, I spent a lot of me talking over the top of you. I apologize. I mean, this has been a challenge for lots of people for a long time. Nobody's went through the mapper.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it really, I mean, just feedback to the general Salesforce people if they're listening. It just feel like I was very surprised, being relatively new to Salesforce, that basic mapping features weren't kind of an out of the box thing, right? Like the ability to like just simply show a person's location on a map. It's kind of for US code seemed like kind of a should be part of like the general Salesforce enterprise, licenses that you're buying. But yeah, my feedback. Anyways, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for your thoughts on the problem. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. All right, let's see. We also have Sarah Pilzer. You've got your hand up, so we'll get you unmuted. Sarah?
Hey everybody.
Hello.
So my question is about launching flows from inside a custom Aura Lightning component, and specifically about how to have it not launch the flow when I'm in the builder for my community. And I'm just wondering if anybody has ideas about that. So can I share my screen?
Yes.
Great. So let's see here. Just trying to figure out which one I need to share. So right now, this is the code for the controller for the component. Can you see that?
Yep, we can see it.
It's doing a couple of things, mostly looking to see, I have a attribute that says whether the record ID is required or not, because I was getting some errors if it wasn't required, and the flow would error out when I tried to start, because I was inputting it, but then I created this if statement so that it won't input it if it's not needed. However, this flow tries to start when it's in the builder, and it doesn't have any of the inputs, or like it doesn't have the required variables going into it because it's in builder, as opposed to when it's actually in community and it's getting a user ID that starts the flow. So I was wondering if anybody knows if there's something I can add to this controller that will tell it, hey, if it's in builder, don't try to start the flow, only start it if you're actually viewing it in the community. Does anybody know anything about this?
Say that problem back to me one more time.
Sure. So, and actually, I don't know if I can share more than one window at a time. Maybe, can you see? So like, if we're looking, I don't know if, can you see the,
I'm just seeing console.
okay, console. Let me see if I can do this instead. Okay, so this is what the component looks like in the community. It's over here in this corner, and it's launching the flow, which is displaying this information. And it looks great if I'm logged in. So I'm logged in as a user into the community, and it launches the flow, no problem. However, if I am working on the back end, get out of the way, Zoom controls. It throws an error because I don't have a user ID or a contact associated with my admin user. So it's throwing an error in the flow. And it's not really a problem, except that it generates a lot of flow error emails. So I was wondering if there's a way that, so the standard flow component doesn't run the flow in the back end.
Right.
And so I was wondering if anybody knew what the code was, or how I might start to adapt this little custom component to not run the flow in the back end.
And it's erroring because it doesn't, you said it doesn't have a...
Yeah, the flow looks from, it goes from the user, finds the contact associated with that user, and then does some stuff. But since my admin user doesn't have a contact associated with it, it's throwing an error.
Not super knowledgeable of the ins and outs, but one idea might be within your code block,
Mhm.
look for like what global variable, like I'm trying to search it now, but I see a global variable called like community nickname, but I'm guessing there's like some actual variable that says like whether you're in community mode. Like these are user types, right?
Yeah.
So a suggestion would be in that code block at the very top, say, if you find that global variable that tells you whether you're in community, and then you just don't
Mhm.
exercise that whole block, right? Of
Yeah.
code. That's where you're getting the error message and the junk. I don't think the problem necessarily is that the flow is being. I mean, it would be nice if you could not trigger the flow,
Mhm.
but in lieu of that, if you wrap that whole function,
Yeah.
interior of it with like an if statement saying, I do this with ETL processes. Like there's an ETL user, and I say, oh, if this is the ETL user, I don't want to run the trigger.
Got it.
So like inside, I'm like, if, oh, it's this user, okay, don't run this because it's going to cause contention.
Okay.
I don't know the global variable, but if you find it, that would be a solution, I think.
Okay, so then I would just sort of put it at the top here.
I think you put it, inside the init, but yeah.
Yeah,
like,
inside the edit, but like,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
If you find that, you might be able to use license type too. The users definitely have a license type.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah,
if
exactly.
if the running user has the login license type or whatever, go ahead and do it. And if it's a platform license, don't do it.
Exactly.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that's what I get for putting myself on mute. Holy cow. All right, thank you, Sarah. That was a good one. And so do we have anyone else that has a question? Marty, go ahead.
Thank you, if no one else does. So has anyone had the situation where you create a gauge on a dashboard and the whole gauge is showing in green as opposed to when you defined red, yellow, green? And Salesforce is saying it's right, which they're wrong. And it's also showing, so if I created, for example, a gauge that was 0 to 100, 100 to 200, 200, 300, and the number is showing as 225, it's showing the whole gauge as green and 225 being the top, as opposed to showing me the red, yellow, green and where the green actually is. Has anyone ever seen that before?
Interesting.
Yeah, not really, but yeah.
No, are you are you able to share your screen with us?
Well, I can show you a screenshot so that I'm not showing you.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think of how we can do this without.
Yeah, I can show you a screenshot.
It sounds like you're not.
Yeah, I can show you a screenshot of what
the component.
Yeah, of the component.
I'm wondering if you take a poke around at that and just make sure your gauge settings aren't all set to green. I'm sure you've already checked that.
Yep. No, I mean, I'm looking at the screenshot and it's 0 to 50, 50 to 100, and 100 to 200, and the number is actually 138, and so the whole thing is green, and it's showing 138 is the far upper number. And then when I look in, I have a demo system where I've got a couple different gauges, and it's showing red, yellow, green.
Right. I guess. Go ahead. I was just wondering if maybe there's another setting where I can't, because I don't have the dashboard component gauge setting like pulled up anywhere in my DevOrg right now. But I'm just wondering if there's some setting that says like the minimum value is it's not 0 for whatever reason, or you have any other conditions on that gauge. Would you consider inserting a new gauge component and giving it like another, like adding that report component in again to see if maybe there's just something quirky with the one that you have?
I tried that, and I tried copying the dashboard to something else and removing it and re-entering it, and I'm going to try. And I did file a support case, and as I said, Salesforce is saying this is the way it's supposed to be, and that's a stupid answer.
Well, that's bananas.
Yeah,
It's 0
I mean,
to
so
100 is supposed to be red.
I just replied back with the two screenshots. So,
Mark,
yeah,
I've never seen that is when, and unfortunately, it's a really loaded statement, so I apologize, but
that's all right.
understanding of what the data is actually underneath the books. So, for example, we had a situation where someone was insisting they weren't in the red. And when we looked at the numbers, they weren't in the red. But it's because they were looking at millions, but the number was actually in like a 1 point scale. And so even though they were reading 1.5 million, the value was really 1.5. Is any chance there's just like a misrepresentation
Good
of what,
question. Yeah, I'll go back and look at that. Very good suggestion.
or worse?
I don't think so, because it's a startup company and all the numbers are really small. I mean, we're talking just in the thousands, but it's a good idea to go back and look at that.
And another other thing I can think of is any chance, even though it looks like a number and it smells like a number, it's not actually a number field, and so you're calculating a text string of 10.
Yeah, no, it's an amount on the opportunity.
It is. Okay, cool.
So
All right.
yeah, it's a standard object, standard field.
Are they multi-currency?
Nope.
That's the other one.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Happy to take any suggestions, because I'm sure it's something really dumb. Yeah, it's like that
It's
probably
it's
I
just
have
hiding
done.
from
But
you.
yeah,
It's just
exactly.
something
All
hiding
right.
from you.
Anything else? Let me know. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you. How's everyone doing? Anyone else have their hand up? Let's see. Of course,
No.
my chat window is disappeared. And no one else has any problems. This is an amazing Friday.
How about problems that we can't help with? So, what's everyone excited about in spring 20?
Can I say something?
Ooh,
I'm
tasks.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say tasks assigned, tasks, I can't even say the word. Assigned to a queue is what I was super excited about, but I got to kind of see how that shakes out.
I have something I'm not excited about, and I'm not sure why, but the way that when you click on the app launcher, it's only showing you your recent item, and sometimes it's taking forever to show that.
So is it the responsiveness, or you just don't like the look and feel?
Both. I don't like, when I clicked on app launcher before, I knew what I wanted. Oh, and they also changed that it went from up and down to left and right, or vice. So it's things are in a different place. But if I clicked there, it was because I knew what I wanted, and it was something typically that as an admin, I don't have it in my drop down or my navigation, and I don't want it there, but I need to see it for whatever reason. And it's just, but right now I'm in my demo system, for example, and I just clicked on it and nothing, I'm just getting that little that little dot thing, just dotting.
Thinking, huh?
Yeah.
I know that there's a little bit underneath that's trying to be smart. You know, there's little bits of Einstein being forced into all of the platform. And so I think in the sandboxes specifically, just there's no recent, so it's having trouble handling that. But I'm surprised that that you're seeing it slow even in production, because I haven't experienced that. But
Yeah.
Sarah commented that she saw it too.
Anything else? Squire, what about you?
I just, quite honestly, the direction that Flow is going to just be such a, how do I want to say this? For years, Flow was kind of a sticky point for programmatic developers to try to, it felt like a hack almost for admins to be able to do what a developer is trained to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the combination of the changes to the Flow model and kind of the power of it as far as debugging, and like it really feels like you're doing object-oriented programming in an interface, I think that's starting to help admins earn some, I don't want to use the word respect because that's not what I mean, but it doesn't feel like a hack to the skilled programmatic developers, but it makes admins act and think like them. So like now there's better communication and collaboration about what is happening. That and the direction the flow has been going for the last 3 releases just feels really good to me. Helps me support my team and create more collaboration across all of my verticals. So you're welcome.
Yeah. That's what happens when I touch my mouse. Everything goes wild. So no other questions today? Yeah, you guys are amazing.
I hope they didn't dial in just to hear us make bad jokes.
I don't have any good bad jokes today. I mean, I do have, what's my favorite one? Oh, I have a knock-knock joke.
Let's hear it.
Well, I don't know how to do it by myself. Hold on a second. Let's see. Someone has to tell me knock-knock. Come on.
Knock-knock.
Knock-knock. Yeah, who's there? And then it's gorilla. Let me say, gorilla who? And gorilla me a hamburger. I'm hungry. That is one of the worst jokes I have. Yes.
It's
There
recorded.
you go. I got kids. They're bad.
Oh,
Oh wait, I got another one. Oh yes. You can unmute now because if we're going to tell jokes, you can unmute and we can hear about it. I got another one. It says, "How do you make a tissue dance?"
Oh yeah.
oh, jeez.
Come on, put a little boogie in it. Anyway, you guys want to hear more?
I got a bad knock knock joke. Ready?
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, knock knock.
Who's there?
Panther.
Panther who?
Panther, no panther. I'm going swimming. I always say that wrong. Panther, no panth. I'm going swimming.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
That's great. Sorry to ruin the fun, but I do want to know more about your comment in the chat. I like the new layout, though I wish it loaded consistently. Say more.
Oh, that's
Sarah?
just about the app launcher. I'm noticing the same thing that Marty was, that sometimes when I go to the new app launcher, instead of getting my cute little drop down of my most favorite apps, it just has a loading circle that spins and spins and spins. So hopefully that gets fixed soon, because I like the I like that instead of just opening up a big splash screen, now it's just that little drop down. It's much more convenient, but not when it won't load my apps.
Right. And just as a reminder, is everyone, kind of clearing their cache occasionally, shutting their computer down, or restarting occasionally during the week. I recently talked to someone who was complaining about just Lightning load issues, and then I referred them back to all of the best practices around Lightning performance, because with the shift to Lightning, a lot of the performance issues fall on the user or on the user system. Where in Classic, it really fell to Salesforce. And so just making sure that you're kind of going through all the best practice steps. And I'll see if I can, I'll drop the links into the end of this to make sure everyone has those. But Lightning really exposes everyone's slow internet and, your bad habits of never shutting down your computer. So. I don't know if it relates to that or not.
It's interesting. I mean, some of us that have been doing what we do for a long time, it's been a little hard to get comfortable with the quick searches. Is that does everyone else feel the same way? Between like the object lookup and now the app picker, and even being in setup and being able to search for 90% of the stuff you're looking for in the string. I never did that. I always just knew where to click, and it's taken forever to get comfortable with that. Am I the only one?
No, change is hard. You're not the only one.
I think a starting admin is really like being handed some really good stuff, because in the old days where you had to scroll through all of those classic pick lists just to try to find the thing you wanted was miserable.
Yes. The reporting wizard was the worst thing that ever happened. And I'm so glad it's gone forever. The 7-step reporting wizard. Come on, you guys remember that, right? But if we are all wrapped up, no one has any other questions, last call. Last call for questions. No. Excellent. I think are we okay wrapping things up?
I think so. There's no reason to make people stay on just to squeeze a conversation out of them. I think that makes good sense.
I agree. It's been a pleasure, everybody. Squire and Jared and I are glad that you joined. And I don't know if Dale jumped on or not. He was stuck somewhere.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, we really appreciate you joining us and, problem solving together. And we'll hopefully talk to you. Did we figure out what the next date is, Squire?
it's the 7th based on February being 28 days.
Okay.
But I don't know.
I've got a lot going on. I think it's the 6th, actually.
Okay.
Friday is March 6th. Yes.
Got a leap year, don't
So
give me fooling.
yes, there's 29 days this year.
Note to self, 29. Okay.
Sneaky. So I hope everyone has a great Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks then.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks all. See ya.